What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, talk about other factors out there and what you should be watching for as time goes on. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with this market. So, as far as NIO is going, let's actually pull up the chart right over here. You guys can see there's been a bit of a downtrend right now for the share price. We're down 4.46% for the day after we got earnings. And earnings were not the best so far. Investors were not that impressed. But like I said before in my previous videos, even if we get this dip, it's just another dip buying opportunity for the long term. So, what happened with earnings? Why is NIO in the red? NIO reported their unaudited fourth quarter results and their full year 2024 results as well. They delivered about 72,689 vehicles in the fourth quarter from both of their brands, by the way. Not bad whatsoever, a big increase compared to what we saw previously, a 45.2% increase from the fourth quarter of 2023, and also a big increase for the overall year. They also delivered about 222,000 vehicles in 2024, about that many. That's an increase of about 38.7% relative to 2023. Now, the margins we're at about like 13.1% in the fourth quarter, compared to about 11.9% during the fourth quarter of 2023, and 13.1% in the third quarter of 2024. Total revenues were not bad. They're actually up about 15.2%. And then their cash flows, once again, at about this $5.7 billion mark. The vehicle margins for the full year was at 12.3% compared with 9.5% during the previous years. So lots of improvement compared to previous years. But then despite those improvements, it was still kind of disappointing for some investors because investors were expecting a loss of 30 cents per share. Instead, we saw a loss of 43 cents. So it's a little bit worse than expected. They did improve their loss of $2.81 per share reported in Q4 of 2023. It's a big improvement, but it's not as much of an improvement as what Wall Street was wanting. Simultaneously, the revenue is only $2.7 billion. That's below the $2.81 billion estimation. So they missed on EPS and revenue. Many investors are not pleased with their performance so far, as we're seeing the share price down. And overall, the margins were, somewhat of an improvement, but not really what we were looking for. On top of this, something interesting is that the company provided investors with guidance for Q1 of 2025 in its latest earnings report. The company expects EVs deliveries to be between 41 and 43,000. Not bad, representing a year-over-year growth of 36 to 43.1%. Keep in mind, we had the Lunar New Year period, and there is some slowdowns happening here and there. So that's part of why these numbers are a little bit weaker than like what we saw in Q3 and Q4 of last year. And then to expect this moving forward, we're actually looking for revenue to be between 1.69 and about $1.76 billion. The revenue, I would see the revenues to increase to about 24.8 to about 29.8%. And then besides that, the majority of these investors are giving them a hold rating, which is not bad. So that's what I'm seeing so far, at least in terms of their reports. So that's very, very important. Now, unfortunately, although NIO did see improvements compared to 2023 in 2024, the problem is that it wasn't really meeting Wall Street's expectations, right? Our losses are bigger than expected. Our overall revenue numbers are looking kind of weak. So keep that in mind. We're not looking that great on those ends. We want to see NIO get back above some key levels. So for the short term, we're looking kind of bearish now after that report. We could be retesting these lows around the 4.3 area. We have to reclaim 4.83 to bounce. Otherwise, we still look a bit more bearish. The daily is also kind of weak. We could be dipping lower all the way down to like 4.27. So please be very, very mindful of that. There's still a lot of weakness right now. To add on to this, I want to mention that there was some news that came out. So with the way the market moved, we saw this big sell-off. So the whole market sold off quite a bit in the morning. But as time went on, we saw buyers come back and they defended. They tried to push SPY and the market back up towards the end of the day. And we closed almost green. We're only down 0.2%. The QQQ managed to close green. ES and NQ and even Bitcoin are all in the green right now. Tesla was also quite green. So the market saw a big bounce as the day went on. Two reasons for the bounce are: number one, President Trump said that when it comes to his tariffs, so he keeps on saying that he's not really announcing new tariffs right now. Instead, he's saying that we have to wait until April 2nd for them. So he said that, and then when asked about exemptions, he said that he's not going to be focusing on that. Instead, there's going to be flexibility instead, even though he is opposed to the idea of creating these exceptions. So he's saying there's going to be flexibility. He's using them for negotiations, and he's going to be maybe, I'm not going to use the word lenient, but he's not going to be too strict entirely when it comes to them. He's willing to be a little bit flexible with some countries. And as soon as he said that, the market started to push a little bit. So some good news came out from there. Also for next week, we have the PMI reports on Monday. Everything else is going to be quiet throughout the week. We have manufacturing numbers on Tuesday, minor data on Wednesday. Thursday is quite simple as well, but then Friday we have PCE data. It's going to be a lot more important, so keep that in mind. And then when it comes to earnings, this is what the calendar looks like. Minor earnings for Monday. Tuesdays when we have GameStop and a few more. Wednesdays when we have like more retail, and that's pretty much it, at least thus far. The fear and greed index is also currently at extreme fear. That's making up the majority of sentiment right now. Momentum is at extreme fear, so keep that in mind. And then the put to call option ratio is starting to dip a little bit more, so it's not looking too good. As of right now, that's not the best of news. Finally, when it comes to the options chain, just know that this is the reason why the market started to push as well. We saw the majority of puts out of the money. We saw the majority of the calls end up out of the money. Almost all of them ended up out of the money. The market makers took a big win on this. So you could see why they pushed us towards the end of the day. It really hurts the majority of options holders. That's why there was lots of chop, then end of the day push. So anyways, going back to the charts, NIO is relatively weak. Unless we get back above 4.59, we're actually favoring 4.3 again. Not looking too good after earnings, but this is just a temporary move down. SPY, on the other hand, is still looking a little bit more bullish, but I need to see us get back above like 568. If we reclaim that, yes, we can bounce more. We're currently near 565, so it's trying to rebound. So overall, decent close, could have been better, but it's good to see that even though we dipped, we did see buyers defend, and we're kind of like in a critical place. So we're going to be looking for a big test next week at this 5.568 area to see if we break through that or not. Could we be forming like a head and shoulders here and we're about to get a big rejection? Are we about to like break out higher? It depends. I do see a little bit more upside though for a couple more points. Even the QQQ is looking a little bit more bullish and reclaim this trend line. I want to see it get back above 485 to continue. We're in this range. We like to balance off 474 and we like to reject off 485. So just keep that in mind. For the IW and Russell 2000, we're looking for essentially this 204 to 205 areas resistance, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. I do expect a little bit more upside. ES is looking a bit more bullish. Could be looking for a test of the trend line towards 5750. NQ wants to hold above 19,935. That holds. We're looking for an attempt for 20,000. For Bitcoin, I want to see this hold above 84,000. If that holds, we're looking for an attempt for 85,000. For Nvda, we're kind of range bound between 114 and 120, so we'll just have to see how it goes from here, if we break past the 120 area or not. For Tesla, we want to see if Tesla could break above 249. So if that breaks, we're looking for a bigger push, especially as we have this gap to fill. So just keep that in mind. For Aapl, I want to see this break above 220. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt to go even higher. If we end up losing this 215 area, we have an imbalance down here at 213. For Coinbase, we're looking a bit more bullish. I want to see us break above 195. If we do that, that's going to be a better sign. We're still technically range bound, right? If we lose 176, we're bearish. If we break 195, we're bullish. We're just completely stuck, so we're waiting for this. Same thing with Amazon. We need to break 198.5 to be bullish. Otherwise, we're just range bound. Meta needs to get back above 608 and start pushing above that. We're still technically range bound. As we hit like the mid 580s to 575, that range we like to bounce. As we get close to 600, we tend to reject, so we're still waiting for this. Microsoft looks a bit more bullish. We managed to close above our 50 EMA, which is a good sign. Break and hold above 392, we're looking for an attempt for 395. And if Google breaks past 168, we're looking for a bigger push, so just watch that very closely. The VIX is technically bearish. If we reclaim 19.6, it would be better. If not, we could be dipping more. So we'll just have to see how all of this goes. Anyways, that is it for my video. I thank you all so much for listening. The market's doing a good job. If anything, NIO has been on a bit of a downtrend. I do think there's going to be a risk of more downside looking at the current trend. But for now, we're going to be very, very patient. Anyways, that's it for this one. NIO has some more downside potential despite the fact that the market wants to bounce. Earnings, obviously, they did see a lot of improvement compared to 2023 and 2024, but they did not really meet Wall Street's expectations, and the share price still came down. With that being said, I thank you for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.